You know, as teens, we all have questions about faith and religion, but we've all been too scared to ask. Well, here at 1315, we strive to answer those questions so that you can boldly stand up for your faith in everyday scenarios, like over a cup of coffee. So, grab your coffee mugs and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back for another episode of 1315. I'm Caleb Eckerd, and I'm joined today with a very special guest that you all know and love, and I'm super excited to have him back.
Yo!
And by that sound, you definitely know that it is Ben Young that we've got with us today. Now, I don't necessarily need to do the quick sip because I think the people know, but you've never done a quick sip, so I guess we'll run through that with you.
Okay.
So, and I don't have the questions in front of me, so I'm just going off the top of my head. But, so on a scale of meh to mind-blowing, how's your week been so far?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'd say mind-blowing. Yeah. Mind-blowing, definitely.
Okay, why mind-blowing?
Well, I don't know. I'm back in the U.S. That's just mind-blowing. Getting back, going from one country to another. I just say it's pretty mind-blowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the next question, I believe, is what did you have to eat before you came and recorded?
Yeah, I had eggs and some pancakes, some orange juice and apple juice.
And then right before this, you
had some pound cake.
Yeah,
and
then
some fruit.
Partook in some fruit.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
What book did you just most recently finish reading?
Wow.
Or are currently reading?
I'm reading a book called Darwin's House of Cards. And it's really good. It's the author is a journalist, and he's kind of going after Darwin's argument section by section based off his book and what he's said and stuff. So it's really good on talking about intelligent design and stuff. So I've really enjoyed reading that.
Sweet. So what book would you say, other than the Bible, has influenced or impacted your life the most? Tough question, putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, that's a tough question. There's so many good books. Let me think.
I can think of one.
Wow.
Or at least that for you that I think.
I'd have to go back and think of all the books that I've read. I'm trying to think right now. What? I read the Stealing from God is a good one.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
That's a good one. I read that one recently. That was a really good book, and it makes you think in a new light about how to talk to atheists and stuff. But I don't know. I'd have to make a list and then come back and think about them.
All right. So. Well, there you have it. And I know I'm missing one question. I asked you 4. There were 5.
I don't know.
I can't remember the 5th one. Anyway, well, that's okay. So today, Ben, you join us back from where are you back from? Just so people, or I don't know how much you're allowed to say as to where you were by a podcast, but
I was. Yeah.
You can give us country. I don't think you can.
Yeah, I
give
was
us specifics.
Yeah, I was in Nepal and Thailand. I was in Nepal for almost 3 weeks, and then Thailand for about 2. And then I came back on Tuesday night. So, yeah, that's where I've been for the past month or so. So, it's been all Caleb. I know that's kind of hard to deal with sometimes.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool because you and I both went and kind of did our separate. We were both participating. Kind of, I think about what Paul says, kind of like participating side by side for the gospel, except for we were on different fronts.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's been kind of cool, is to know that, it's of the same value, before the eyes of the Lord, but it's just on, and it's all for Him and for His glory, but it's on different It's on different ends of the world and in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So, obviously, can you just kind of give... Ooh, I bumped the stand. Could you give a rundown for the people, just kind of like what you were doing while you were there?
Yeah, so... when I first got there, we just did some kind of follow-ups from where a team had been previously in Nepal, and just some people that wanted to know more about Jesus, and we kind of shared some more stories with them, and I shared my testimony with them, and we would pray with them, and just trying to lead them to the Lord and give them some more background on, who is Jesus, and what did he do for me? Why do I need him? And we did some just evangelism. We just walked around some places and would, pray for some that the Lord would lead us to the right people, and to talk to them and hopefully have a good response, and that they would want to know more and we could follow back up. We did some encouraging in some churches that we did, and discipleship training, because many of the church members and even the pastors don't get a lot of discipleship training on how to share the gospel with people around them.
Right.
So we did that a lot. We took a trip up in the mountains, and me and a national partner, and did that. And that was encouraging, to be worshiping God surrounded by, temples of different gods. So that was a large part of what we did in Nepal. And in Thailand, different things. It was a wider variety, but there was a Buddhist monk I got to talk to who had just become a Christian he's been a Christian for about 3 years, and just had lots of questions about the Bible, and he would come with his questions, and we would get to answer them and try to give him insight. But that was a much different experience than Nepal, but equally as eye-opening and encouraging to me, I would say, as well. So it was a wide variety of things, but also just getting to encourage the families that I might have been able to, touch and be with. So it was a pretty incredible experience, I would say, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how did that kind of shape what you think you're going to do in the future? Do you think it had an impact on you, or in what respects did it change how did it impact your life going forward from that point?
Yeah. Well, it kind of gives you an even greater glimpse into the lives of people who decided to obey God and their calling, and his calling in their life to leave their home in the States and go somewhere else. And the age ranges for those people from young to old and from single to family. And so I got to see different aspects of that unfold. And so, it's something that was kind of encouraging, as I didn't really feel out of place anywhere that I was, which is kind of weird because I'm a tall white American.
For those of you who are confused and don't know who Benjamin is or seen him personally, Ben is 6'2".
Yeah.
Which is pretty tall overseas. That's ginormous.
Yeah. So I definitely stand out like a ton. You just see a white guy coming who's tall, but I didn't really feel out of place. I kind of fit in where I was, and didn't feel like I was going against what the Lord was calling me to. And so, I don't know if that's where he's calling me, but I'm confident that wherever he calls me, he'll give me peace, where I'm at.
Wow.
Whether that's, in the States or overseas, either way, if it's where he's calling you, he's going to give you peace for that.
So I think that's a big thing, is that knowing that wherever the Lord calls you, there is peace where the Lord has called you. It's not like, even in the craziest times, there is peace that's rooted in Christ, because you're being obedient to what he set before you.
Yeah, I and something else with that, that you kind of see and learn, and that I talked to with one of the churches, is that obedience to God doesn't always get you where you think it's going to get you.
Yeah.
One lesson I did was Daniel in the lion's den, and I kind of took them back before. How did he get to the lion's den? Well, he got to the lion's den by being obedient to God's call and being obedient to God. He just prayed to God after a decree. He was obedient, and he prayed, and I got him with some lions. Mm-hmm. And I got to get up close with some big cats like that on my trip, and I would not want to be in a den of hungry lions. But God, he was obedient to God, and he did end up in the lion's den, but God also saved him from that. So obedience doesn't lead you somewhere easy many times, but the Lord's right there with you walking through it. So that's encouraging to know.
Yeah, obedience doesn't always lead you to what the world would deem as good terms.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's comforting to know the Lord is with you, and people are praying back home. That was comforting, whether it was me in an airport by my lonesome self for 6 hours, or trying to figure something out. If I had issue in an airport or something, I knew people were praying, and that whatever it was, I was going to get through it, or if I wasn't going to get through it, I was going to get to be with Jesus in heaven. So, it's comforting, in a way.
Yeah.
So it's just following God's will has an aspect of comfort to it, even though it is not comfortable. God doesn't make us comfortable, but following his will in itself somehow makes you feel at peace.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that there's nothing more than that statement there that reflects Philippians 4, where Paul talks about, making all your requests known to the Lord by thanksgiving and supplication.
Yeah.
But also that he'll give you a peace that's beyond all understanding. And I think that goes beyond it, because by every circumstance, you should have been and were uncomfortable in times, but at the same time, you were at peace with what your circumstances were.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's awesome to see how the Lord continually works, and how his character and the things that he does not change.
Yeah.
Who you are, what your age is, where you are, and what time period you live in.
Yeah.
So, that's going to be relevant for the same people that are here, that were there, 2,000 years ago, and same for the people that are, maybe 2,000 years ahead of us. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's cool. What was one thing that was extremely challenging for you? Or what was difficult, challenging, or what was an obstacle that you faced?
Well, I'd say something that was difficult or challenging is seeing so many people led astray by Satan and his tactics and attacks and just false idols. Some of it's like being in the Old Testament, but it's discouraging. And sometimes you look out and you see literally millions of people, and they're all lost. And you're like, how do we reach all of these people? Mm-hmm. And it can be discouraging, but it was encouraging to me. You're in such a dark place. I just kept thinking, well, where does light shine best? Is in a dark place. If you've got a room that's completely dark and you shine a small light, you'll see it. But if you've got a half-lit room and you shine a small light, it's really hard to see it. And so in a really dark place, the light of the gospel and God, can shine so bright, and you see it moving. Mm-hmm. And just having patience with people, not knowing who God is, and then just wanting to add him to their other gods, not making him the Lord of their life. So, that's difficult. The language is always a barrier, but you can't let it frustrate you. You just have to, be calm. And sometimes it was good for me because it allowed me, while he was translating, it allowed me to kind of think about what I was going to say next.
Yeah.
And not get fumbled over with my words. But yeah, so there's definitely obstacles and barriers and difficulties. But like I said, there's also joy that you find in those things, and peace. So, yeah, that's encouraging.
Yeah, so I think this, we talked about how, like before you left, that there were still a lot of things that were completely undecided before you left. Like I mean, I was sending you off the day that you left to get ready to go to the airport, and you still didn't know some of the things that where you were supposed to be or what you were supposed to be doing at a certain time. But how did the Lord use that kind of like unpredictability in a sense?
Well, I think just being flexible. You have to be flexible when you go to a place like this, and you just never know what you're going to run into or what is planned. And if it's planned, what are the people going to react to it? You just kind of go off the people and, what their reaction is to what you share with them. But, we got to share with the people we were in contact with, whether it was a taxi driver or a man in a store. We got to share, and, most people didn't, make a decision right there, but you wouldn't expect them to. You give them something to think about. And also, I got a chance to talk to some monks and talk to them about what they believe and why they believe it, and really kind of challenge them and challenge their thinking and stuff. So I think, God's always got something planned. You don't know what it is, and your plans might get changed or something. We were in the mountains, and we're hoping to take a plane ride back because it's a lot quicker than taking the Jeep ride. That is just torture. But we weren't able to do it because the weather was bad and it's not very safe. So we had to take a Jeep, but ended up, getting to talk with another guy who had a cool story. And so, you never know what God has got, what God's got up his sleeve, which can be frightening and, comforting at the same time. But yeah, it's not being able to know what you're doing. Sometimes it's scary, but I'm a kind of go with the flow person sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes I'm, stick to a schedule, but at this point I was definitely just kind of wherever I'm going. I'm just happy to be out here, So that definitely allows God to work through your heart a lot more than if you're not letting God work, but you're letting the schedule work. He's not really getting where he needs to go. Right. So.
Yeah, I think kind of what you hit on, and this applies for us here, is that, you were talking to people about, about Jesus and the gospel, and you really didn't, you may never see the fruit of those conversations in your lifetime. Yeah. Most likely, chances are you won't. But, I think here in the States, a big thing is that we go and, we shy away from having a conversation because you're like, I'm going to have a conversation with a person and it's going to be of no result. Yeah. For, it's not like they're going to accept Jesus right there. So, it's a waste of time, and you feel like you fail because they didn't accept Jesus. Even when you you go out and you make that, you make that bold step. Yeah. And then you finish and you're like, oh, well, they didn't want to accept Jesus as their savior. So I must have failed, and, that's not the case. And I think that's where a lot of us have failed in thinking that our success is based on if we check a box or not. But the reality is that it takes multiple times. Yep. For the Lord to work and move. I think about, Peter and, Jesus coming up to Peter and be like, do you love me? And yeah. And it's like 3 times. It took him 3 times, And it's just like, I don't know. It's that idea that it takes multiple times, and it's persistence, and it's not failure to talk to someone and just have them go, okay,
Yeah.
That's not failure at all. That's like,
Yeah.
That's being faithful.
Well, it's not something that I, had to reiterate to people, students in Thailand and Nepal. It was, they're like, well, how do we share the gospel? How do we do this? And, what do we do if they say this? And, well, we have to be obedient to God and share the gospel, share our testimonies. God calls us to be obedient, but we can't convert them. We don't make their hearts change. Only God does that. And so we have to remember that, because it can be discouraging when you try to do all this work and nothing's happening. But a lot of times it's because we're trying to do the work, and we can only do a small bit of it, and God does the rest, which is good for us because, we just have to share, and God says that his word won't return void. But we just have to remember that, to be obedient and share. And not everyone's going to want to listen. There's some people that were like, are you coming to convert me to Christianity? Well, no, I'm not. And I can honestly say that because I cannot convert you. That's God who does that. But I'm just sharing a story with you. If you don't want to hear, that's okay. No, I don't want to hear it. Can you just leave? And so, okay, we'll leave. But, that's sad. But also, well, we tried to share, and not everyone was open. But, hopefully God's working on their hearts, and people around them can share with them as well.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your challenge or encouragement to people in the United States that have never been on mission, or like they've never been overseas, or
Yeah.
Does support for international missions, is it solely like going? Is that the sole supporter of international missions, or is there other aspects to it? And
yeah,
how can you attest to all aspects of support for international missions?
Well, first I would say, if you want to go on a mission trip and you haven't gone, go. And if you don't and you feel that God's leading you there, go. Just follow God where he's calling you. It's an eye-opener, but don't just go for the experience, go for God. But, there's so much work to be done, not just in other countries, in our own country, and sharing to be done, and just living like a Christian. The questions that we got sometimes about Christianity were just sad, because people have seen people who claim to be Christians, but they're not living like it. And so they're a little confused, and so just live like God calls us to live, and share and be obedient to God where you are. But also follow his calling, not being scared to do that. And if you're scared, that's fine. I was scared sometimes too, but God's there with you. And, so are people praying, and, let other people know what you're feeling, what you feel he's calling you to, and pray about it. 'Cause prayer is, the first thing that gets it going, is prayer. And also I'd say something good about going on the trip, on a mission trip, wherever it is you practice your testimony a lot, which I had done some, but we don't practice it a lot here in the U.S. or wherever you live, because we don't really share. But if you don't practice something, you're not going to be good at it.
Yeah.
And so I got to practice that a lot. And so I got better at, kind of changing my testimony to the crowd, kind of, developing it. And so that's something I would encourage you to work on wherever you are, is just work on your testimony, or a way to share the gospel easily that you're not uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of hard if you don't have a good way, and it's the first time, and you're like, well, what am I supposed to share? And somebody's like, share the Roman road, and you're like, I only know one verse of the Roman road. And so just, have a way, not that it's a scripted thing or anything like that, but you just want to be comfortable with sharing with people, because like I said, if you don't practice, you don't do it well. So.
Yeah. Well, I kind of had the same experience, like not necessarily with my testimony, because, that's something that, I can continue to get to work on as as my life progresses, but I kind of experienced the same thing where, likewise with your testimony, if you have it all together and you're like, I know what I'm going to say, but you don't really work on it, you don't kind of talk through it. When it comes down to sharing it in an actual conversation, you're like, bruh, I don't know it. And I kind of had the same thing at the Chick-fil-A night for Spirit Night for Grounds for Faith when I had, they were like, one lady asked me, she was like, oh, well, what are the funds going to? And obviously, like, I knew what they were going to. Like, I knew they were going towards the podcast and funding the domain and all that. But I didn't have, like, a nice little short, concise, like, spiel. Yeah. And I got, like, and I was like, well, it goes to this, and, I know it goes to this. Yeah. And it was not clean or put together or anything. And so, obviously, there's significance to that, but there's so much more eternal significance to knowing exactly what you're going to say when it comes to your testimony. Yeah. But it's not a script because it changes with every person.
Mm-hmm. Yep. For sure.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I hate to say it, but we're almost out of time.
Goes quick.
It does go quick. This is a very short, concise, and Ben, you probably gave us, 5%, 10% maybe of everything that went on. Because sometimes it's hard to, he can't put it all in here. There's some stories that he's told me that, he didn't say today. But I'm sure as we record more together, because I enjoy having been on recording our conversations. We've meant to be doing this for years. But so it's so good to hear it, and I know that as we go on, we'll hear more about it. So glad to have you back.
Yeah,
missed you thoroughly. Yeah. So if you haven't already, go on ahead and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss out on an episode. We have new episodes every single Friday, and then if you have not, go check us out on groundsforfaith.com. That's grounds, the number 4, faith.com. Ben, give him a great big yo.
Yo!
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.